There you go.
Thanks. Okay. And how are the questions on the agenda? Okay. And actually, thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
I should have had you show me how, but
It's okay, it was stupid complicated.
yeah, I don't want to know it. Yeah.
Where does COP 2 go once it disassociates?
What, oh, it gets recycled.
It just so then
Yeah,
it
it'll
goes
go
to
back,
ER.
yeah. You can go back to the ER, pick up some more stuff, okay? So yeah, it can make multiple trips. All of the top two components can make multiple trips. GDP, our SAR, will go back to the SEC 12 and get a new GTP, and it can be recycled. Okay,
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
what's the difference in this, in the signaling, or the sequence from COP1 and COP2?
okay, so COP2 will pick up diacidic amino acids in the C-terminal and good. In other words, you're going to aspartic acids or glutamic acids, and there's usually two. Okay, so you could have a D or an E, aspartic or glutamic acid, then any amino acid, then either a D or an E. Okay, so two acidic amino acids with some amino acid in the middle. Or diaromatic. And it turns out that ERGIC 53 in its C-terminal end will have two phenylalanines close together, okay? So it has, in fact, next door to one another. So those are the things that COP2 will recognize and bind to. Okay, and there's actually more, but I'm just going to give you that. COP1, on the other hand, binds to the KKXX sequence or KXKXX. And it turns out that ERGIC 53 in its C-terminal end is going to have both the two phenylalanines, and it's going to have this sequence motif. Okay? So it can get picked up by COP2 to go forward. It can get picked up by COP1 to go back. Yeah, Amanda.
So does COP1, it's ARP, right?
Yes, and then, yeah, the other
Does
thing I was
that
going to
work
put
the
in.
same as SAR?
It works exactly the same as SAR. So so what I'm going to do is just put in SAR here, or ARP here, and it has to be a GTP. Okay. So the difference between COP1 coated vesicles and COP2 coated vesicles is what the GTP is, the G protein is. So where do you suppose the guanine exchange factor is located for ARP?
On the Golgi.
Probably on the Golgi or and probably some on the ERGIC too, but not on the ER. Okay? And the other thing that you need to take in COP1 is that it recognizes this amino acid sequence in the C-terminus rather than these amino acid sequences in the C-terminus. Other than that, I mean, the structure of the proteins differ, but other than that, their functions are analogous, the same thing.
So does ERGIC 53 have both K, K, XX, and?
Yeah, it has the diphenylalanine things, and it has one of these.
Just one of those?
Yeah, not both. It either has this or that, or something similar enough to be recognized as this or that. Yeah.
So then COP1 would have backward movement, whereas COP2 is forward movement.
Exactly. And if you look at the color picture I gave you, COP1 is also looks like it's used in moving from the ERGIC to the Golgi. And so I don't know, because I've not seen this figure before, I don't know what that means. So classically, like if you read your, if you read your book, and the book is pretty vague about it, COP1 is retrograde, move backward. Okay. So that's just, so you can, by the way, you can have this on your cheat sheet, you can have this recognition back recognition. You can have ARP, well, that's a protein A, so that's okay. You can have this. You can have, so all of this stuff is legal on your cheat sheet. Oh, except I forgot to tell you one protein. There is one protein with this motif called a KDEL receptor. And I can't remember, I think it's KKXX, I think it has KKX. It doesn't matter. But it binds to COP1 because of the KKXXC terminus. And what do you suppose its job is? KDEL receptor. What do you think is going to bind to the KDEL receptor? Proteins with a KDEL sequence. And what are those kinds of proteins? These are resident ER proteins, luminal, with the KDEL sequence. Okay, so the job of the KDEL receptor is to capture accidentally escaped ER proteins. Captures and returns accidentally escaped, I'll just say escaped, ER resident proteins. And of course, they're luminal. Okay. So urgent could be, so this protein, urgent could be that protein, just going back to the ER to pick up more cargo. Or it could be a KDEL receptor capturing accidentally escaped cargo.
So then do escaped or integral membrane proteins just bind to COP1 because of their KKXX
Yep.
sequence?
Yep. So it turns out, and it turns out that, and I'm getting to Bryle's question. You notice when urgent goes back to the ER, it's not going back with cargo. It has to drop off the cargo.
Not urgent 53?
Huh?
Urgent 53?
Yeah. So when urgent 53 is going back to the ER, it goes back empty. Because what's the point of it taking cargo to the Golgi if it's just going to dump stuff, bring that same cargo back? Okay. So in one compartment, prior to going back, urgent and any other protein has to get rid of the ligand, get rid of its protein. Okay. So these cargo carriers okay, like urgent, 53, has to let go before recycling. I mean, it just makes absolutely no point if it's going to do its job and keep returning those proteins back to the Golgi. Okay? Yeah.
So then why does urgent 53 get out of the vesicle?
It doesn't get out of the vesicle.
I thought it was recycled back with the color.
Yeah, well, it will, this is going to fuse to an urgic. So, and then an urgic, and then another vesicle forms on the urgic. So you have to kind of picture that urgic as vesicles coming in and vesicles leaving. Okay, so you can almost imagine then a round trip ticket for urgic 53 from ER to urgic, and then it gets bound back up in the COP1 coated vesicle, go back to the Golgi. Okay, so it can cycle around. And in fact, lots of proteins cycle back and forth between different vesicles and membrane compartments. That, nobody thought that a number of years ago, and now it's pretty clear that proteins are just going back and forth from this organelle to that organelle, from this organelle to that organelle, quite a lot. So the question, so how, okay? What causes the release of proteins here from ERGIC 53, but the capturing of cargo here? So here cargo is captured. Here cargo is released. Okay, and the article makes a couple of comments about, oh, it could be due to, and it probably has a lot to do with the vesicle as it's moving towards the Golgi or towards the ERGIC, is becoming increasingly more acidic. So the ERGIC is a compartment that is more acidic than the ER. And it may be that the affinity for the cargo bound to ERGIC is lower, so ERGIC 53 releases its cargo. Okay, but here where the pH is about 7.2, okay, there's probably a higher affinity. I think this is less than 7.2. Okay. I don't know if it's 6.7, if it's the same pH as the cis Golgi. But it's less, okay? Another one is a change in calcium, okay? So the vesicle that forms doesn't have as much calcium, and the calcium concentration is a little bit lower. And that might be a cause of release. And, yeah, it's true. And then they thought, maybe something's getting phosphorylated. I don't know what might. I think, you know, right now, a lot of stuff is as far as we know, is pH driven.
Did you say lower calcium or higher calcium concentration?
Yeah, so remember the ER is a really high concentration of calcium, okay, but apparently as you go from towards the other side of the Golgi apparatus, towards the trans end of the Golgi apparatus, the calcium concentration, oh, sorry about that. The calcium concentration will drop. Sorry, change your bureau. So tell me about ER, the KDEL, binding to the KDEL receptor. So like BIP, an accidentally escaped BIP, is it going to bind better at an acidic pH or at a neutral pH? We're going to pick it up and bring it back to the ER. So it probably is going to bind better at an acidic pH. Okay? And will have much less affinity for the KDEL receptor at pH of 7.2. What could it do if it's stuck onto the KDEL receptor? Okay, so we have about a half hour and we've just formed the vesicle. Dang. Okay, so now we have to fuse the vesicle. Okay, and I'm just going to focus on, oh man, I'm going to skip a couple pages here, and then we'll see what we got time for. So I'm skipping about 3 pages. Yeah, we're getting to the punchline first. Okay, so what we haven't drawn in this thing is there are a couple other proteins that have to get involved in moving a vesicle from one organelle to another, okay? One of these is proteins that's going to be in here is a V snare. So as you get bored and you're redrawing your vesicle, you can squeeze a V snare in there somewhere, because they get picked up. They're going to get bound up in a COP2 coated vesicle. I just didn't have room for it.
Is the cargo released before or after COP 2 falls off?
Probably after. And the reason why I'm saying after is it's probably not gonna get released until this vesicle fuses with its target organelle. That's probably where the release is gonna occur, where there's a significant change in pH in the target organelle compared to the pH of the vesicle that won't. Yes?
Sorry, I want to be sure. Did you say the vesicle is going to like somehow release the cargo protein, or how did they dissociate from the vesicle?
Well, we're not gonna release these. Oh, these, you mean this thing?
I mean, do the cargo proteins stay bound to the vesicle as it goes to the Golgi, or?
It can't get out because it's a trans. It's
They're
an membrane.
transmembrane, so they are locked into the membrane. Just like the sodium potassium pump can't fall out of the cell membrane, or the insulin receptor can't fall out. These are transmembrane proteins. This SAR it doesn't penetrate the entire membrane. It's just loosely in the membrane.
So
But these guys are span the membrane.
So as the membrane forms new cargo proteins are also.
Right, yeah, so the purple will stay there. These guys will float off, the green things that are not membrane bound but are luminal, they'll just float off when the pH gets low enough. Okay? I don't know if I'm answering your question.
So the cargo do not get recycled to use, they just go and new ones form?
Yes. Brian,
I think, so is the cargo, is released and it's in the vesicle.
yeah,
When the vesicle then reaches the point that it's supposed to, is that when the cargo is able to escape the vesicle?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's imagine, I'm going to jump a couple steps here, and I'm going to throw out all of the proteins, but let's imagine, okay, this is what I'm going to draw. Okay, so this is the vesicle, this is this vesicle that we made, and this is it after it fused with the target membrane, okay? So this could be like the ER or something, or the Golgi. Okay. And we have these kinds of proteins and these kinds of proteins. Oops. There. Okay, got it? Okay. So this protein is this kind of protein. Okay? And then the transmembrane protein. But inside the more acidic compartment, these guys float off. And they can enter the lumen of the Golgi, or the lumen of the Urgic. And these guys can diffuse, and these will actually then become membrane proteins. Oops, I got the orientation wrong. Membrane proteins of the next compartment. Might be Urgic, or it might be Golgi. Does that make sense? There's a picture at the beginning of chapter 12 that shows you that the orientation of the protein doesn't change. So what's inside the vesicle becomes the inside of the Golgi, or the inside of the next organelle. Yeah, Kayla.
So is that second picture when it arrives at Urgic then? Or where?
It could probably arrive at Urgic.
When it's at Urgic, is it also gonna be similar when it gets, like, similar to how it'll look when it's on its way to the Golgi as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, so orientation, what's inside the ER becomes the inside of the vesicle, and that inside of the vesicle becomes the inside of the next organelle, okay?
So these two are still in the ER, right?
This has just budded off the ER, just budded off the ER. Okay, so if this is COP 2, it just budded off the ER. Okay, and let me take a look. So take a look at this. Okay, so take a look at this drawing here on that article, and here's COP2 be creating the vesicle, and then it buds off. Okay, so this vesicle here is this vesicle. Okay, and notice that it's going to uncoat. It has to uncoat. Okay, and so this is the uncoated vesicle. So the hydrolysis of SAR releases coat, COP2, releases these little guys, and now we have a naked vesicle. Okay? We're all onto the naked vesicle? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And I said, well, really, if we could squeeze a protein in here, we would have to squeeze a V snare in here. And the V snare would probably be tucked underneath the COP2 particles. Okay? So you could squeeze a V snare in there like that.
So
Okay.
it's not sticking outside of the coat, because if it were, then it would attach to it before the coat was gone, more or less.
I don't know. I don't think so, because I don't think it would not be close enough to a target, a T snare.
Okay.
Okay, so, and again, this picture, take a look at it today, and you'll notice that, yeah, there is a V snare, and the V snare is tucked underneath the COP2, or the COP1, coated coat around the membrane. But I have to tell you about another protein. This is not the only thing that is also present. Okay?
What was the V snare's purpose?
Huh?
What was the function of the V snare?
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet. We'll get there. Okay. And then you also see a protein called RAB. And RAB is a G protein. And RAB also associates with a membrane some of the time. Like SAR, it comes in and goes out. It penetrates the membrane and then comes out, depending on whether it's bound to a GTP or a GDP. The squiggly line, okay, is a prenyl group. So RAB is anchored to the membrane because it is prenylated. But it can be pulled out of the membrane. And I'm not sure we're going to have time to look at how. Every vesicle that forms has to have a RAB. And every vesicle that forms has a V snare. So these two proteins are essential components of a vesicle that forms and is going to the next organelle. Okay? And the book shows you a table of different kinds of RABs. And there are lots of different kinds of RABs. They're all prenylated, and they're anchored temporarily into the vesicle. Okay? And what I'm running out of time to tell you about is that really the RAB is functional only when it is bound to, I gotta see how kind of sheet. Okay. It's bound to by another second protein. What happened to green? Okay. So I'm gonna draw a second protein. called the RAB effect. And there are lots of different kinds of RAB effectors. I was going to show you a video of one RAB effector today, but we probably won't have time. Might have to do that Friday. Okay? So the RAB effect, the RAB really by itself has absolutely no functions except that it's a GTPase. But what has function is the RAB effector. And for the RAB effector for ER to Golgi movement, it's called a tether. Okay, because it's going to help anchor this vesicle onto, I'll say, urgent. It's a tether protein, and I'll show you this in a minute. What does it mean? Okay. So far, is that okay? Is this? And we're gonna just have, let's have the urgent. And look what's on the urgent. So, the target membrane has a T snare that can interact with the V snare, okay? And the interaction is specific. It's not just anything that comes along with a V snare can interact with this T snare. The V snare on this vesicle that was formed by COP2 is a specific V snare and can only interact with that T snare. Okay? And then there's going to be, purple, something for the effector to bind to. Maybe call this a rabbit, I don't know, a RAB effector, receptor. You ready? Does that make sense so far? And so the RAB effector is going to make is going to come in contact with this protein. Okay? So there's a dual selection here. Okay? So there is a V snare, T snare interaction. And the RAB effector, well, we'll call it receptor, and RAB effector receptor, and its receptor. That interaction. So those two things are saying, yeah, this is the right membrane, this is where you're going to fuse. So let's draw the, here's the RAB. There's this prenyl group. It could either be, for biochem people, black people, either a farnesyl or a adrenal group. Either one. It probably depends on the RAB. in the, that's in the membrane. Okay, and then these two guys get together. Okay, and I'll show you, and it shows you a big tangled mess, and I'll try to draw the big tangled mess. Okay? I'll stop here for a minute, see if there's any questions. Okay, so the D snare binds to the T snare. The Rab effector binds to whatever receptor is on the ergic, okay? So we got a dual match thing. So yeah, we know it's the right match when we got these interactions going on. Okay. And when the V snare and the T snare come in contact with each other, they get tangled up. This is just, I'm just going to draw this as another decimal. Okay, and does that make sense? So these guys are going to tangle up, and they're going to get more and more and more tangled up. And the more tangled up they get, the closer the two membranes come in contact with one another. During this process, okay, the Rab is going to hydrolyze as GTP, and what's going to happen to the effector, do you suppose? It's going to come off, okay? So in this interaction, the Rab will hydrolyze as GTP.